Back in 1947, Albert Camus wrote this incredible story about a crisis. But it doesn't start with a big explosion or some huge announcement. Nope, it starts with a single dead rat. Today, we're diving into the opening of his masterpiece, The Plague, to see how a totally ordinary town, just completely oblivious, slides into an absolute nightmare. It's a look at what happens when a disaster hits a place where nobody, and I mean nobody, thinks it could ever happen to them.
So right from the get-go, Camus gives us a huge clue. This quote, it's not just some fancy literary decoration. It is literally the key to the entire story. What he's telling us right on page 1 is that, yeah, this book is about a plague, but it's also about all these other kinds of prisons we find ourselves in. We're talking political occupation, feeling like an exile in your own home, that whole struggle against a reality that just makes no sense.
All right, so where does all this happen? Welcome to Oran. It's a French port in Algeria, and let me tell you, Camus goes out of his way to paint this city as, well, kind of boring. It's a modern, super practical place, built to face away from the ocean. It's almost like it's deliberately ignoring anything that isn't its one single-minded focus, making money.
Yeah, Camus just strips away any sense of romance from Oran. I mean, look at these details. It's a city of pure, unadulterated routine. You work, you make money, you have your simple hobbies. Even something as huge as love or death, they're just seen as inconvenient. And he calls it a city without suspicions, and that is the most important part. This is a place with zero imagination for disaster, which, as you can probably guess, makes it dangerously unprepared for what's coming.
So it's into this incredibly ordinary, almost predictable world that the first tiny crack appears. And it's not some big, dramatic event, not at all. It's something small, something strange, and something you could easily just brush off.
Our guide through all of this is Dr. Bernard Rieux. And on the morning of April 16th, as he's leaving his apartment, he stumbles on a dead rat on the landing. He just kicks it aside, doesn't give it a second thought. Just a minor, weird nuisance on an otherwise normal day. Of course, he has no idea yet, but that one single rat, that's the first tremor of a massive earthquake.
And the first official response? It comes from the building's concierge, a guy named Monsieur Michel. Now, for him, this dead rat isn't a warning sign. Oh no, it's a personal insult. He calls it a scandal. His reaction is just pure, unadulterated denial. He's convinced someone must have brought it in as a joke because, and he's very clear on this, there are no rats in his building. End of story.
But then the problem just explodes. It's incredible. In less than 2 weeks, the city goes from that one single dead rat to thousands a day. You've got sanitation crews totally overwhelmed. Rats are literally staggering out into the streets to die in piles. The whole city is gripped by this queasy, nervous feeling. And then, just as suddenly as it all started, it stops. The streets are clean, the rats are gone. It feels like the nightmare is over, and you can almost hear the entire city of Oran just let out this huge collective sigh of relief.
But of course, that relief doesn't last long. It's tragically short-lived. That eerie silence the rats left behind, it's about to be filled with a new sound, one that is way more terrifying.
And here's the brutal irony. The very first human victim, it's Monsieur Michel, the exact same guy who insisted there are no rats in my building. He dies from this mysterious high fever, his body just racked with these horrible, painful swellings. So Dr. Rieux has to watch as Michel is just consumed by this horrifying illness. The symptoms are so swift, so brutal, we're talking a matter of hours. A perfectly healthy man is suddenly delirious, burning up with a crazy high fever, his body covered in dark spots. And after this short, agonizing struggle, he's gone.
And he isn't the last, not by a long shot. Soon, Rieux is seeing more cases just like it. Then other doctors start seeing them too. The daily death toll starts to creep up. Quietly at first. 16, then 24, 28, and then 32 deaths in a single day. This unnamed sickness is definitely spreading.
And this is where you start to see this really dangerous gap open up between the official story and what's actually happening. On one hand, you have public notices talking about a few cases of a malignant fever, telling everyone to stay calm, trying to keep a lid on any panic. But on the other hand, you have Dr. Rieux on the ground seeing the grim reality. He gets the terrifying math of how this thing spreads, and he gives this incredibly stark warning. If we don't do something decisive and do it now, this disease could kill half the city.
This, as you can imagine, forces a confrontation with the truth. But the administration, even some of the other doctors, they're hesitant. They're all kind of dancing around the subject. Why? Because to actually name the thing is to make it real. And if it's real, that means they'd have to take actions that are just unthinkable.
Finally, it's an old colleague, Dr. Castel, who just cuts right through all the denial. See, he's seen this before, years and years ago in China and in Paris. He doesn't need to wait for a lab test. He just looks at Rieux and basically forces him to say out loud the terrible truth they both already know in their gut.
I mean, the word itself just sounds impossible, archaic. It feels like something from the Middle Ages, right? Something you read about in history books. It's a disease that, as one doctor says, everyone knew was eradicated in the West. Well, everyone knew that, except, of course, for the people who were dying. The whole idea just feels absurd, completely unreal, even to a doctor like Rieux.
Plague. For the very first time, the word is spoken out loud. And in that single moment, the entire reality of the modern, ordinary, completely unsuspecting city of Oran just shatters.
So the unbelievable is now official. And with that one word, the life that every single person in Oran knew is about to be over.
The decision doesn't even come from them. It's made far, far away in the capital. A telegram arrives, and the words are just so cold, so bureaucratic, and so final. Declare plague state, close the city.
And the consequences are just immediate and devastating. The city gates slam shut. Think about it. Families on vacation, people visiting loved ones, kids staying with relatives. Bam! They are all instantly separated by this invisible wall. The mail stops. Phone calls are restricted to emergencies only. The entire city is sealed off from the rest of the world, and every single person inside becomes an exile, trapped in their own homes, all sharing the exact same fate.
And that's the new reality at the end of the first part of the book. The people of Oran are completely cut off from the world, from the people they love, from the lives they used to live. They now have to face this plague, alone but together. And Camus leaves us with this powerful question, one that I think echoes just as loudly for us today. When the gates are sealed, when everything you take for granted is stripped away, and you're trapped in a crisis with everyone else, who do you really become?